I think the major thing that I'm worrying about, especially when I'm dealing with you guys, because I just don't look at you as people that are on my channels. I look at you as actual people that I care about. You just have to make sure that you put in all safety precautions when you're traveling. And this is why I say it's very important to look at the statistics of the cities that you're going to. What is the size of the country? What is the size of the city? How many people are there? What's the ratio of men to women? What's the socioeconomic status of the city? Is your school a urban campus? Is it a suburban campus? Is it a rural campus? Are you going to be spending significant times in the city? Are you going to be in a place where there are other young females that maybe you guys can go out together, other communities? Um, I really like the idea of when I see young ladies travel from foreign countries, if they have, some friends they could travel with, that's generally good. So let's say if you and your friend are both going to Harvard, this is a good thing because now this is your buddy and you could be a support. Um, even something as simple as walking on a college campus at night. I used to tell people like even when you walk outside at night, maybe a late night class, you even have to be careful about walking by yourself. So even if you have walking partners or you guys meet at a certain time, so you're not, something bad's not happening to you. Hey, listen, I worked security on a college campus my freshman year in college, and the things that happen on college campus are the same things that happen on the street. Believe it or not. So I'm just telling. I'm not saying this all the time, but some people just think that all these things that happen are just things that happen on the street. No, 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 no. These things happen in college. Every crime that you've seen happen on the street, it could happen on college at a certain level. So you definitely have to make sure that you're paying attention when this whole thing is going on. Now, I truly believe that when you're looking at universities and when you're looking at studying overseas, especially in America, there are some things you have to take into consideration. One of the things definitely is if you're traveling by yourself, if you're a single man or a single woman, or if you have a family, these are all things to put into consideration, take into consideration when you're looking at studying overseas. So with this episode today, what I'm going to talk about young ladies who are going to be studying overseas. All right. Now, even though I know that we're living in a time where men and women are equal and modernity is normal, as a female that is traveling internationally, there still are some things that you have to be careful of and some things you need to be cautious of, as well as, know about the advantages and the disadvantages of traveling by yourself, going to these places for school. Now, also, I'm talking from the experience as well as being a father as well, that has had girls that were in university and things that I would warn them um, about as well. So this isn't coming from an area where I'm trying to control or tell you what to do, but generally just the area of of concern. So I think that one of the first things to do when you're traveling to America is to understand that you may come from a country where there is a safety net for you. There's a safety net for you, um, and you're breaking out of that mold and going to a place where it's pretty much no holds barred. So let's say, for example, if you're from a traditional society where pretty much, you're with your family, your aunts, your sisters, y'all go, y'all walk, y'all talk, no one bothers you and things like that. Some places in America simply aren't like that because now what's happening is that you're not with the pack anymore. You're kind of like by yourself and you're going to be with females and maybe even other males that kind of like might have different cultural issues, maybe different religious issues, and it may take you a little bit of time for you to fit into that. And you have to be careful in America because, like I said, everybody doesn't know everybody. So let's say if you're from a small little village in Kuwait, everybody knows each other, families, this, that, whatever. You guys have lunch, dinner all together in a communal type setting. Now, when you go to America, unless you travel with a group, some of these factors might actually get lost. You might not be able to do some of these same things that you used to do before. So now what happens that especially in young ladies, it kind of leads to a lot of depression because you're used to your mom there, you're used to your aunts, you're used to your sisters, and now you're around a bunch of other people, maybe friends, but it's a bit of a difference, you know. So this doesn't happen to everybody, but you do have to understand that these are things that are common amongst young ladies when they are traveling. A second thing is to understand that even though you will be free to do what you can in America, sometimes being a young lady in school or dealing with, dealing in a land you're not familiar with, there's also there's always the chance that people will try to take advantage of you. They may try to, you know, as we say in America, pull the wool over your eyes because they figure that you're a female and you don't necessarily know how to handle your situation. For example, maybe things like taking your car to the garage. They may try to throw some extra prices on there because they know you don't know what's going on. For example, if you know about cars, good for you. But I'm just giving some examples. And when you're not there and you don't have the protection of, let's say, maybe even your brothers or your family and your father and things like that, all of those things that maybe other people used to do for you in another country, you have to start doing this yourself. So imagine, for example, you have some cities in America where it's dangerous to walk outside at night by yourself, not just as a woman, even a man. It's dangerous for you to walk into certain neighborhoods by yourself. It's dangerous for you to wear certain colors. You might never even know about it. There's certain places in America that if you go outside and you wear certain colors, it may be dangerous for you, single things like that. Whereas, for example, you may come from a country such as Kuwait, such as Dubai, such as some African nations, such as some place in Asia where you can walk the streets all at night and just sit outside and nothing's going to happen to you. You understand? I remember seeing that when I first came to UAE, where the women were pretty much sitting outside all night in the desert, just having fun, talking, laughing, and it was very wholesome. But there are places in America where you can't do that. You're not sitting outside in New York City till 3 a.m. just talking and laughing and joking. Some places you simply can't do that. So you have to understand the differences, that some of the things that you're used to from where you come from, you simply just can't do that as much. So you always have to take that into consideration when you're going down that route. So I guess the main question people want to know for their daughters and for young ladies that are going to study in America, is America safe? Okay, so here's my take on it being an American. America has over 300 million people and there's just thousands of cities. Some places are going to be safer than others, all right? But you really have to understand that it's going to depend on what you like, what you think is going to fit your personality, what's going to fit your lifestyle. All right. So we talked about weather. We talked about size of towns, size of cities, and things like that. You really have to understand that this all depends on what you're used to. Now, in terms of safety for women, in general, it is, from the culture in America that, women should be protected and, you should hold door for women, you shouldn't be hitting them and things like that. But in reality, it's still a little bit hard. You'd be surprised that some of the places that where you come from, you'll see more protection for women there than you'll actually see in America. So if you look at maybe the amount of assaults that happen for women, let's say in your country, look at those compared to what it is to women in America and how that works out. You have to look at that. So if you're from UAE, for example, where you may see violent attacks on a woman that are pretty much just don't happen, and then compare that to America, you're going to have a different situation. So if you're comparing it tit for tat like that, you have to understand it might not match up. Doesn't mean it's not safe, but there are things that you have to be careful of that you may not, that you may not see in your country. Second, understanding, and believe it or not, and you say what you want, and I tell this to people, America can be a very violent country depending on where you're at. Some of the cities are violent. There are a lot of things that go on there. and you have to be able to sift through and figure out where do you want to be. So the larger cities are going to have more crime. New York City is going to have more crime than Dubai. Los Angeles has more crime than Doha, Qatar. It is what it is. So you have to understand, larger cities, you're going to have bigger problems. And as you become a student, you're going to have to figure, how can I navigate away from those problems? Because maybe you may see something and you don't see what the big deal is, but someone who's a native of that country knows, okay, let's not go down this path right here because we know this could be a bit dangerous. All right. So these are things you have to take into consideration. And as a father, I know that some of you fathers are looking at schools for your daughters. You can't just place your daughter anywhere and say, oh, she's in America, she's okay. You can't do that, because then at the end of the day, you fail as a father. So as parents, you really want to look at these places. Okay, we're looking at a university in San Diego, for example. What are the supermarkets like? What kind of support do we have? What kind of religious organizations are there? What kind of student organizations are there? Can I get in contact with somebody if there's some sort of trouble? So you definitely want to make sure you're looking at that. And you have to be very, 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 you have to be very careful, especially as a young lady deciding what place where you want to study. Damn, Jalila. Bottom line is, though, you're going to run to very nice people in America, very great people, good, wholesome people. But at the same time, you have some people that they're simply still backwards in their thinking. And as a lady, you want to make sure that you're in an area where you feel comfortable. So let's say, for example, if you're coming from a certain country, you're coming from a certain location, and you dress a certain way, you act a certain way, you want certain things in place. You may definitely want to make sure that you're in an area where they're used to seeing people like that. So, for example, let's say you're a young Muslim lady who wears hijab, for example. Okay, if you're a hijabi, you want to be in an area where there's other hijabis walking around. All right. So let's say if you're in the East Coast cities, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, and even on the West Coast like Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, it's not uncommon to see women in the stores, on campus, or in the community wearing hijab. It's normal. But then you got some cities, not trying to be funny, where that stuff is like a little bit backwards, all right, where they're not used to seeing different people. They're not used to seeing these things, all right? Now, maybe if you were with your husband or your brothers, things like that, it's okay. But I'm going to be honest. As a woman, if you're by yourself, one thing about men, they get bold when your father and your brother's not around. They get bold when your cousins aren't around. All right. Now, back home, someone says something to you, your brother and all his little crew, they may come up and do something. But now imagine if you're stuck in a place like South Dakota, and you're in a place and you have a bunch of men just jeering at you, making certain things, or they're trying to talk to you and get your phone number and things like that. And it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. So you have to understand that different places are used to different things. If you go to a city like Washington, D.C., or a city like Philadelphia, or a city like New York, or a city like Newark, New Jersey, they're used to seeing people from different places. They're used to seeing, for example, young woman wearing hijab. It's not something that's going to scare them. They even know how to act. They say, okay, well, I know she's into this is that, whatever. All right. But then you got some places they see it, and some of these places they're not big on diversity. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I know you guys like to read the paper and listen to the news and all these things. They say, oh, America's just a great place, greatest place in the world. And granted, there are some great things about here, but there's also some dark sides here that you have to understand that they are here and they're not disappearing. And I think that it's especially hard for young ladies traveling by themselves to this country that don't have a setup. You're going to burn yourself out. So if you are going to these places, this is why I have these checklists that say make sure you're choosing the university you're going to wisely. You're figuring out what the town is you're going to be in. You're figuring out the size of the college you want to be and all these other things. You want to have that done early. The earlier, the better. Then you're going to be able to blend in a bit more. All right. Second thing is, if you have the money, and I know everybody doesn't have the money, if you have the money, take that money and go travel and see a few colleges in America, especially if you're a young lady, you're going there by yourself, all right? Or if it's a crew of you guys going, all right? You definitely have to be careful and do your own due diligence when it comes to that. Now, something which may be that you may think is serious or maybe not that serious, is making sure that you are uh, finding places where you can get personal things for you that need for you to maintain yourself as a young lady studying in America. Why do I say that? Um, Generally, what happens, and I'm saying this even with me having boys and girls, the maintenance for boys is different than the maintenance for young ladies. So you definitely want to make sure that when you're traveling that you have certain things that females need, perhaps more than men, whether it's your makeup kit or personal hygiene things, whatever. You want to make sure that you have this all set in place, and then when you get there you find out places where you could where you can get these items easily. One thing that is great about uh a lot of the American campuses is that even if they don't have school stores, you have companies such as Amazon and eBay where you could order a lot of the items you want even on subscription. So let's say, for example, if you need to order like sanitary pads or things like makeup or things like deodorant, and you don't feel like going to Rite Aid all the time, you can subscribe to it on Amazon where it's coming to your door like clockwork every month or every week at a certain time. So you definitely want to make sure you want to take advantage of some of these. That way you don't have to be running the streets every 2 minutes. Because let's say, for example, it's late at night, you got to go to the store, there's no one around, and the store may be in the wrong side of town, a neighborhood that you don't necessarily feel comfortable in. It's good to have some of these things in place. Last but not least, I think it's very important for young ladies to understand that your safety is the utmost concern. Your safety is the utmost concern. And I know it might not be right, but there's certain places that as a female, you have to be a bit more cautious than, let's say, the males are. So if you're traveling by yourself, you have to understand that you're kind of going to be extra vulnerable, and you want to make sure that you're in an area where you feel safe and then you don't feel like you're threatened. Sometimes, believe it or not, the big cities can actually be a little bit better for young ladies because there's always people around and there's things in close proximity. But let's say, for example, if you're a young lady and you decide that you want to go study in Kansas or something at a campus in the country, and it's far for you to get to a store, or you got to drive far to go here or there, that could actually be a little bit more dangerous for a young lady because she has to travel far distances to get things that she needs. Other things to understand is that making sure that you are realistically looking at if you're able to handle this task mentally, because the last thing you want to do is have mental breakdowns during semesters where you're not going to be able to finish your work. All right. um, Take advice from other women that are there. Maybe contact some of the university groups, contact some of the student associations that maybe that you want to be affiliated with, and then that's an extra layer of support for you. America, believe it or not, a lot of people think I'm just going to come here and do it myself and this, that, whatever, because you guys watch a lot of movies where you think it's just that easy, and it isn't. It takes time and effort for you to somewhat assimilate into the process of what's going on there. Now, if your goal is basically just to go there, get your education, and go back, then you might not have to invest as much time into, fully adapt to the culture and whatnot. But you do have to understand that as a young lady who's going to be studying in America, there are going to be some things you're going to see which might go contrary to your culture, contrary to your beliefs, etc. And these are things that you're going to have to learn to balance, because you don't want to go to some of these places and then all of a sudden you're coming back home different with a different mentality, that might be detrimental to your culture and family and things like that. So there are good things you pick up from some countries, and there are bad things that you could pick up. um, I think that really one of the major things that's going on in America is that a lot of young ladies, more young ladies are going to school than young men. But the issue is that what's going to be the outcome? What's going to be the outcome? When we're picking majors, what kind of majors are we picking? Are we picking majors that is gonna allow us to get good jobs and to get and to get employment over a long time, or we just picking jobs. Say, hey, look, I'm picking majors. Oh, look, I just got this job here, or I just got I got a major in art history, which is actually not a bad major, but you don't know what to do with it. I've seen people come and get majors, young ladies come and get majors over things they don't even understand, but they just did it because they want to look like, oh, well, look, I have this major here. This is what I'm going to do. All right. So, and also look at your majors and figure out how relevant this is going to be to the country you come from. All right. In America, to be honest, I'm keeping 100% honest. A lot of students get a little lazy with these majors. Some of these majors aren't worth anything. All right. Some of them aren't. But if you're from Iraq, or if you're from China, or if you're from Pakistan, or if you're from Switzerland, then, maybe a degree, a bachelor in, let's say, gender studies, for example, it might not work for you where you're going. All right. This is why sometimes you find out a lot of women that are traveling, a lot of them are STEM majors, because they know that definitely when they go back home, they can get a job in that field. All right. Whereas in America, we have to push we have to push young ladies to get into STEM here. All right. This is what we kind of have to do. So these are things you definitely want to check out. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get this conversation moving. What kind of things do you think young ladies need to be concerned about when they're traveling to America? If I missed a couple, I'm always open to hear some new suggestions. But I'm talking this from observations I've seen. I'm also talking this from a position of a father who had girls that were in university, and so this is my take on a lot of these things. I think that definitely one good thing about Belgrave College is that we're going to have specific workshops dealing with young ladies that may be traveling by themselves. Um, I personally think that when you're traveling overseas and you are a female, you do have to be extra careful, because at the end of the day, it's a cruel world out there, and some people will try to take advantage of you. They'll try to run game on you, as we say in America. They'll try to do things which aren't too cool. Maybe try to steal your money or try to steer you in a direction where they're taking advantage of you. So you definitely want to make sure that you're on point if you're going to travel. Now, for parents, I can't tell you what to do when you're dealing with your daughters, but you know your daughters better than anybody. So I would suggest that if, let's say, for example, if your daughter's in eighth, ninth grade and she really wants to study in America, start making these plans right now. Make these plans right now. Maybe you have a family member who's in America they could stay with, or maybe you have family that's close. So I had a colleague of mine one time from he was from Jordan, and he had a sister that lived in one lived in Canada, and one lived in New York, Long Island, New York suburbs, New York City suburbs. So of course, naturally, when his kids are going to head to school, he's going to be looking at certain areas, and schools in New York are some schools he's looking at because he has family in New York. So even though they will be coming as international students, they're going to have that support. So he's going to feel a bit more secure knowing that his daughter is going to go to school in New York, but she has uncles that are 10, 15 minutes away. So we see a lot of these with families, especially when you're dealing with your girls. They send them to areas where they know they're going to be safe. There's other family members there, and you minimize some of the trouble, that can definitely happen. All right, let's jump on this. Let me know what you think about this and how we can make it better, and we will see you later.
And that thing then. Yeah. Right. I say, I mean medication. No, I'm just need a beat.